Hello guys, welcome to episode 4 of this Jotai tutorial. In this episode, I am going to show you how you can update and delete state in your components. And of course, I'm going to talk about a very important topic, which is immutability with your atoms. This is very important to understand. So let's get started. The objectives. We're going to allow the user to update the status of a book from reading to, for example, read or to read. We're going to allow users to delete a book. We're going to learn about, updating specific entries in an atom. We're going to talk about immutability, which is a very important concept, and we're going to see a couple of best practices when you're using Jotai for state management. So let's talk about immutability. So if mutating or to mutate something means to change it, immutability means like a feature for a piece of data, and that immutability feature means that the data cannot be changed. So you cannot directly change something. This is a very important concept in functional programming. You cannot change the value inside of an atom directly, but you need to kind of create a new value and return it. So Jotai atoms are immutable by design. You must always create a new copy of the state when updating. You cannot directly change the value inside of the atom, but rather you need to, create a new copy, set the value of that new copy, and then return it. To update a book inside of an array atom. So suppose you have like an atom called books, which is an array of some books, and then you want to, for example, delete a book or update a book. So instead of doing this directly, because atoms are immutable, you need to start fresh, create a new copy of that atom, set the values, and then return it. So set books, take a look here. It is taking the previous copy, or let's say the current copy of this atom, and then it's gonna map over it, and for each book that exists there, it's going to check the ID of that book with the ID of some updated book that is defined somewhere else. And if they match, it's going to update the status of that book. Otherwise, it's going to do nothing. So again, we're not directly updating the books array, but rather we are creating a function inside of this set books. We're taking in the previous copy of the books atom, we're changing it in some way, and we're returning it. So let's continue. To delete a book, you're gonna again take in the current, or let's say the previous copy of the books array, and you're gonna return this. You're gonna return a new version, a new copy of the current or previous, let's say, copy of your books atom, and then you are going to set the value like this. So you're basically gonna, filter out the books or the book whose ID is the same as the ID that you want to delete. Now, in this episode, I want to add the logic to update and delete a book, and I'm gonna talk about it. So let's talk about the code first. As before, this is the the new version of booklist that we're going to create in this episode. I'm importing use atom. I'm importing my filtered books atom as well as my books atom. And for the filtered books, I only want to be able to read the values, but for books, I want to be able to read the values and update the values. So I am going to do my updates and my deletes on the books array. So the books array kind of holds every single book that the application has, but the filtered books is like a subset of that books atom. So the updates and the deletes will happen to this atom, books atom, but when I'm reading the books, when I am showing the books to the user, I am going to use filtered books array, which is why I am only capturing this value returned by the use atom hook. The next one is this function, handle a status change. So I'm going to take in the ID of a book and the new status for that book. And as you can see here, I am gonna go through the previous version of this, books atom, and I am gonna update the state of the book whose ID is the same as the ID that I have here. So again, I am not gonna update the books array directly, but rather I am gonna return a new copy of the books array. Why is that? Because atoms in Jotai are immutable. You can't change them directly. Whenever you want to make an update, you need to create a new fresh copy. You set the values the way you want, and then you return that new copy. For handle delete, the same thing, right? And then when I am, showing the books to the user using that li and ul tags, I am going to map over not the books, but the filtered books. The reason is that I want to respect the filter that the user has selected based on those 4 buttons that we had in the UI. So the rest of the code is not that difficult. So as you can see here, I am rendering the title, the status, and then I have this label that says update status. There is this select element with different statuses. Take a look at the values. So the value attribute as well as the text we're rendering. So these are the different values, if you remember, that we had inside of one of the atoms. So these are the values, not inside of this atom, inside of that component, the book filter component here. So I have decided to set these as the values for these different options inside of this select, so the user can actually update the values of the book, the values for the status of a book, and whenever this select triggers this onChange event, I'm gonna call this handle status change that we saw above, and I'm gonna pass in the ID of the book and the new value that the user has selected. So next we have the button. The button is a delete button. Is gonna call the handle delete, and the handle delete is gonna mutate the state, because the state, that atom, let's say, is immutable. We saw that we are returning a new fresh copy with that book that we want to delete being filtered from that fresh copy. And let's go ahead and update the book list component. I have created a new branch. I don't know whether I told you or not. And then I am gonna remove this, and I am going to write the code for the book list component, importing my use atom, the 2 atoms for filtering and for reading books, and then the book list component. I'm using books to do the deletion and the update. I'm using filtered books to show the user the books that I have. 2 functions for handling the change in the status, and another one for deleting a book. We already talked about these 2 functions, right? So handle delete is going to accept an ID, and it's going to filter that books atom, and it's going to return only the books whose ID doesn't match the ID we want to delete. And then let's go over the filtered books array to only show the books that are filtered based on those 4 values. And then let's allow the user to update the status of a book using a select element. Whenever a new option is selected, we're going to call handle status change. And then we're going to have different options for the status of a book and a button for deleting a book. The delete button, when clicked, is going to call handle delete. and we're done with the component. So right now, if you take a look, not only you have that filtering option, right, but you can go ahead and change the status of each book. For example, The Hobbit is set to read, and this one is to read. So I'm going to change read to reading, for example. So this got updated. So the book list component gets updated because the status of a book updated. The status inside of the filtered books atom got updated. Now I can go to reading and I will see The Hobbit. And of course I can delete one as well. Let's go ahead and delete this. And this got deleted and the component re-rendered, right? I can go ahead and add a new one as well. So let's say React dev by the name of the channel, and the initial status is going to be reading. So if I go to reading, I get this. I'm going to change this to read, right, to all, and then I'm going to, for example, delete clean code, and I get this one. So right now we've got the delete feature, we've got listing, we've got adding, and we've got updating. So the CRUD operations, create, read, update, delete, right? But we're not done yet. There are so many things we need to learn and discover about, Jotai and atoms, which is why I'm going to invite you to join me in the next episode as well. But before we do that, let's wrap up this video. I'm not going to talk about the explanation again. You can, pause the video to read this because I know I already talked about everything. So the best practice, again, a couple of best practices when you want to use Jotai. Keep setAtom style for clarity and atom updates. They're immutable. Always use immutability. Never mutate atom data directly. Derived atoms like filtered books atom will recompute on any update you make to your primitive atoms. And yeah, we have the application now. We can add new books, we can update the status, we can filter, we can delete, we can read the state. So right now this is the summary of this episode. We have the code to update the status of a book using setAtom. We can delete a book, and we saw the reactive design of Jotai in action, and the fact that components get re-rendered and the derived atoms get recomputed, recalculated whenever your primitive atom that they depend on change. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. Again, as before, give this video a like, consider subscribing to the channel for more tutorials, and stay tuned for the next episode as well.